All right. Okay, I think I've got it all working. So you probably see the screen of our home page, right? Still? And then me, okay, awesome. Okay, well tonight we're gonna work on some more on the assignment and the best design principles. We're gonna focus on creative interfaces and graphic images, how we can use graphics to help with our design. And I expect we'll be spending some time on the assessment too. Do we have any questions before we begin? Oh, okay. All right. It's the wrong one. So last Monday, we began looking at how to create from scratch. By the way, Ryan, I'm going to set that assessment so that you can retake it, just like I did last week. So I haven't done that yet, but I'll do that later tonight. I mentioned about using buttons, and then I've talked it over with the other instructor, and we want to teach you about how to create buttons with CSS. And so let's go back to our where we left off. Dreamweaver. One of the ideas that I wanted to share with you tonight, what I'll do is I'll talk about this option up in here. One of the things we have to learn about in Dreamweaver is some of the interface that we have across the top, the menu options. And so far we've been introduced to some of the ones off the file menu, and then the edit, find and replace. I don't know if we've really done any find and replace. Different kinds of view. You can do look at the code and the split code, split the screen vertically. In fact, when I bring up one of these files here, I might just go out to the, so here in the view, you can go in the code view, just like this button right here. You can split code view. You can change the view to be split horizontally versus vertically. And you can switch views, and we have other options down here. You're clicked on the split view, changing window size. Window size, this is based upon the device that you're creating a web page for. Whether you want to zoom in, turn on rulers. Magnification, a grid. You show a grid. Turn on guides, snapping. Let's move into insert. We've been focusing a lot on this insert tab over here and the different things you can add. The div tag, you see there's a one-to-one relationship between this menu drop down and this over here, div, image, paragraph, all the various headings. H1 is the largest one. It gets smaller as it goes down. The table, we've learned about table, tag. We've used figure, unordered list, that's this bullet. Ordered list, that's numeric. A list item goes within those lists. And insert a hyperlink here. About our vacuum he's right at the wrong time. He's pretty fast. I'll just keep talking. I think you'll be able to hear me. The header, these are semantic tags. I use the word semantic because there's meaning given to these tags. This is kind of a new aspect of HTML5 because the tags have meaning, whereas before it was just a small set. So this word semantic element. Element is another word for tag. What's going on here is that the World Wide Web Consortium that defines HTML. A moment. The standards here, and then the web design and applications, and this is where we find the definition of HTML. So this group is the worldwide group for defining standards, and some of which are HTML and CSS. So they define the language, or the markup language. They define exactly what tags to use and so on. So these HTML and CSS is defined by them. So when they say semantic, HTML5 semantic elements, what that is in this process of defining the HTML, they are adding codes to the language in order to make it more usable. And so they use the word semantic. And semantics, by definition, is the study of the meaning of words and phrases in language. Hold on one second. I think I'm speaking a little bit longer, so I might just mute. I was moving my computer into a nearby office, but that's right when he quit. So, so let me back up a little bit here. I've got to remember that. See, out at my desk, I have. I've got 4 monitors at my desk, and when I move into an office, I only have my laptop, and so I try to stay at my desk where I've got the 4 monitors. It's gone now. Can you tell me what you see on my screen right now?
See an HTML, CSS, JavaScript like page with like browser support, news, like that.
It's the W3 Schools, the browser support. Now it's your desktop.
Trying to get my where the text is. Let me see your texting. I can't bring up the text. Hold on. Chat. There we go. Sorry, I'm trying to get the screens back. I disconnected my laptop from all my monitors, so it's kind of taking me a little bit of time here to get reconnected to where I was. Okay. Okay, this web's core language. So the meaning of semantic, what it means is that the makers of HTML language have tried to, this group here has tried to make the tags that they use to be more meaningful. What that means is, like the div tag, that's not indicative of what it stands for. It stands just general. That's why they say non-semantic. There's just no meaning associated with it. The semantic one is meaning, and so you can see that there's not much meaning to that. But the word form, that's when you know what that might represent. So the word table or img short for image. So the makers wanted to get more like this, where the tags had meaning. They call them semantic elements just because now they use tags for the header tag for the header, nav tags for navigation, section and article, and this is called an aside over here, and the footer here. And so these tags now represent a new change to become more semantic. Here's a list of other ones, the details. You can see these words mean something. And the reason why they are heading in this direction is their goal is to make websites be a little smarter when Google or whatever search engine comes in and crawls over your site and indexes all the words of your website. They're wanting to allow that crawler. I use the word crawler. What it is a program that reads your entire website and indexes all the pages. The reason you need to know about that is because that's how you index your website. If you remember in week 1, we talked about SEO. It stands for Search Engine Optimization, SEO. So knowing the words that we use. So when the crawler web crawls through a website and it encounters tags like this, the crawler knows more specifically what kind of content is in this area. And the value of it is when we have standards like this, the crawler can know that it's reading a header with the word header, footer, an article, and it will format its output accordingly. So, so this is an example of all the different semantic elements that are available to us. You can see them down this side here. The value of semantic elements is that it becomes a more intelligent website. The web page itself gives more information to the crawler. I'm using the word crawler, but I want to show you what I'm talking about. If you've created a website and you want Google to have it come up in the search result, you have to go tell Google to come crawl your website. And so this is the website right here where you go, and I'm going to paste this to our chat. If you create a website and you want Google to come index it and crawl it, you type in your website address. You have to upload the website to the URL. So let's say I owned a website called www.affluent capital. And then you click here just because you want to tell Google that you're not an automated program. And then submit request, and now that website address is submitted to Google, and it processes. The computer is going to go to the website and it'll go to this website. It won't read the graphics or anything. It will actually read this. This is the content that Google is going to be reading, just like a browser reads through it. So the Google crawling machine, if you will, see that? It says crawl URL. Crawl. The reason why they use the word crawl is because that crawl the web is because it goes down and starts reading along, and it detects the tags that you use, and when it encounters that tag, it knows that this is going to be the title. Keep on going down. When it encounters links, it will jump to that file and read that. This is a CSS file, and so I'm quite sure it does not do any indexing of CSS, so it would just keep on going down here. But if you encounter a link that you link to in your web page, that would be something that would then go access, or an image. Google will also index the images. But if it encounters a link, it will, this is JavaScript. I'm looking for a link in this code here to get us down to where you would jump to. There we go. This is a link right there. There's an anchor tag. And so the crawler will come and find this file that you're referencing it, and then it'll go and open up that file, jumps to that file, like that. Once again, it reads that, and then it comes back to this file and then jumps into this file and reads that, and then comes back to this file and jumps into this file. That's what the process of crawling is. So it's crawling throughout your website, following through on the links, and when it follows through on the links, it parses through all the tags and indexes it. So, for example, if it finds this word outside a tag, if it's inside a tag, it won't reference or index it, but it's fine. finds a word outside the tag, it will index that, and it'll index it in its big indexing machine. And that's what the crawling does. And it will go through, parsing through this, finding keywords and putting them in their index, so that this particular file now is registered as having this word and this word and this word. All the words are referenced, so that Google, if somebody comes along and types in, for example, the words primary layout, and we type those in, it will go out and check its indexes and bring up all the most popular web pages that have those words in it. So this web page, it has been indexed, and you can see there's 133 million results. So somewhere in those 133 million, you will find this particular web page index. There's other algorithms for getting your web page to show up higher in the Google output, but that's outside the scope of our conversation tonight. So all these words that are outside the tags will be indexed, and all these indexed. So that means that if anybody does a search that using these words, they'll be able to access them. So that's crawling. That's what the verb crawling means. And any search engine has to have a crawler. That it's basically the ability to input the file content that's on your web page and put it into their system to index it so that it's available for search later. Okay. So coming back, so that's how you record your website to have Google eventually come back to the website with a program, and it's all done automatically. And it opens up the home page and then follows all the links from there, eventually traversing your entire website with the site map of the website. So the semantic is, when it parses along, it will know that it's reading an article, or it's reading a header, or a footer, and so on. And the value of this is the words like this in the footer are much less important than that same word being used up in the article. The value of this tag is it's basically relegating these words to be only associated with a footer. If this same word were used up in an article, it would have more importance, because if I were to go and type, posted, I am more interested in the word posted showing up in the article of web pages rather than showing up in the header or the footer. So that's why the word posted here, because it's inside a footer, would be much less important than that same word used, like, for example, if it were to say up here, if you had the word posted in this area, because that would be inside an article, that word posted would be something that would be indexed and more important than the same word posted found in a footer. So that's the value of semantics. Any questions up to this point on this discussion of semantic elements, HTML5, and meaning? I was expecting Aaron to show up. I think he may have forgotten, because he said he would be here online about 10 to 7. So we come back to this website assignment here, and I want to talk about the idea of a site. And how Dreamweaver manages a site. Can you tell me what you see on my screen right now? I'm going to change it. Can you see Dreamweaver right now? Did that change? Still just the desktop? Do that again. Okay, what do you see now? Okay, great. Now, you know by now that when we have an index.html page, we can bring up our other files here. Got home, about, portfolio, contact. We have a folder here. See the files there? There's the images subfolder. So coming along the top here, there is a drop down called Site. And this concept of a site means all of the files that you have. And so rather than just a single file, so you can do a new site here. Let's figure out where we're going to put our new site. Let's see, week 3. So I'll start building it here. Some people get a little confused if you build it in a week folder, and so maybe what I'll do is I'll create a separate folder. I'll just create the folder up here, and that way, instead of it being down in some, and if we built it down in here like we have begun, then next week if we're going to work on the same thing, it would be caught down here in the week 3 area. So what I'll do is instead create just a folder here. Now I'll take advantage of these files and we worked on. I'm just going to copy them, or I can move them. I'll just move them. I actually just copied them. So this is like the old copy. I'll keep it there for backup. So here, do you see the folder that says website on the screen? Can you see that folder, website? Okay, good. So let's go out and point to that folder right there. So I'm going to click choose. So let me explain to you what's going on here. we're taking advantage of Dreamweaver's ability to manage an entire site. And what we've done here is we've told Dreamweaver where our local site folder should be. And that is this one website subfolder. And we give it a name. So when we click save, now we can look over here and Dreamweaver will go out to that folder that we just gave it, and it will list all the HTML files that it found in that folder, as well as images. And so this now is considered a site because it's a whole folder of HTML files and images. Eventually we'll have CSS files. So let me close out this here. And if I double click on this index.html, it opens up that one. If I double click on about, we'll create a new tab, contact, and portfolio. So each of these are web pages that are associated with this particular site. One of the advantages of having a site is that you can upload or download content of the site to servers. Now, with a site, you can actually manage lots of sites. You don't have to just be working on one particular folder. You can, let's say you were a web designer and you were working for a lot of different clients. Well, each of the clients, you would create a new site or a new folder on your hard drive that would point to the content like we just did. This week 3 website is what I called it. I think I might give it a new name of just website, because we use that same folder from next week. We don't want to call it week 3. Okay. Try that again. Oh, there it goes. Takes a while. So that's the entire website. I clicked done, but it's just taking its time. I think there's a couple bugs in this new version. Now the screen is frozen because I can't click on anything else. Maybe because there we go. It was this other dialog. Mono dialog. So we have the site here. It's got an images folder, and then the next thing that we want to start working on is how we begin to introduce CSS into our design. Now, right now we just have strictly HTML. We had created, if you recall, we created the various tags here, and we began to break up the tags that we were using. Let me go back to this one here, where the header we put in the header tag. So you can see here we got header and header. Some people like to indent just to make it look a little better. So we have the header there. We don't yet have a footer, although we have the div class equals footer. But if you recall, footer is one of those semantic tags right here that we could use. In fact, if you read right here, it says many websites contain HTML code like this: div ID equals nav, or div class equals header, div ID equals footer, to indicate navigation header and footer. See that right there? Div class footer. That's an example of what they're talking about. But what they're saying is, instead of using the div tag, you can use the exact semantic tag. So instead of us using this footer, what we can do is call this a footer. And just make sure that we've got a header over here, and there's the footer. So what I'll do is I'll select this and delete it. Then I'll click on the footer and see if it will appear here. It's within the body, can't be outside the body. If it ever happens that it's not doing something, look around for the dialogue, and they pop up on a different screen. And I've got this other screen here, and this dialogue is popping up on this other screen instead of right in front of me here. So insert footer, we can just click OK. And so there you have the semantic element. So we've got a header and a footer. So header and a footer. So let's use a nav tag here to be our navigation. I'm going to take this out from the header and bring it down into here. And let's do insert navigation right here. And up pops the screen. I'll just click OK. So, and then I'll paste the navigation inside there. So as you can see, we've moved our navigation out of the header tag, and now we have it inside the nav tag. We got header and nav, and we got sections, articles, and a side, footer. So we could put, instead of this body div tag, we can actually put section here. Let me see if I can find it. See it right there. We'll insert a section. These, just for your information, these dialogues are popping up with a drop down. This is a where to do the insert here. You can do it at the insertion point. That means where the cursor is after the start of the tag or before the end of the tag. And then here, these things called a class and ID. The class is a way for you to enter in kind of like group names. Let's say the class would be, let's say, just here's an analogy. Let's say the word scout. And so everything that had class was of class scout, then I could stylize just the class scout, and everything that was a member of the class scout would show up there. And so, or would be impacted by the rules. So I'm not going to create a class for this because it's not, I don't want it to be too complex. The ID, these are attributes, by the way. If I just typed in I'll just type in class name, and then I'll type in down in here, ID name, and I'll click OK, and you'll see what it looks like. You can see there's the class attribute, this is the value class name, and then the ID attribute, and that's the value of ID. This is to be, in order to combine other tags to be of the same class so that you can influence all of the members, all of those tags of that class by putting them in the same class. But another way to influence the style of the tag is to use an ID. Now, an ID is different than class. An ID is like a name, like your first name or your last name. An ID like Chip Brown, the ID is to give a name, a specific name. Now, this is like an identification, and the ID allows you to pinpoint specific tags inside your HTML document, because this is unique. When you use the ID attribute, it needs to be unique throughout your entire web page. So it's just another way for you to target a particular tag. So back again, a class is you add it to this member of the same class if you want to impact all the different tags of that class with some styling instructions. If you just give it an ID, if you want to target a specific class, or excuse me, a specific tag. So that's what that is. The ID or the class. So back to this analogy right here, where we have the header, the nav, a section. We can do an article too, and let's see, an article. And there it is again, class and an ID. Each of these that we added, each of these semantic tags gave us the option of joining this to a class and or assigning an ID to it. This button, new CSS rule, is really a connector over to the styling. If you want to introduce styling that will impact just this tag, that's how you would begin doing that. This new CSS rule dialog. So a class can apply to any HTML element that has this class. ID applies to only one HTML element. Tag, this would be applicable to anything that has a particular tag. This disregards the class attribute or the ID attribute. This tag means define a styling that will be pertinent to all tags of this one type. And then the compound is really you can select an area of your document, and if you choose compound, it will give the targeted area of where you selected. So, for example, if we want to stylize this here, stylize this with an instruction just right in here. If I selected that, I'm actually within the nav tag inside an anchor tag. And so we would create a rule, a CSS rule that would then associate the nav and then followed by an anchor tag. And that would mean anything that would fall within the context of of whatever I specify. So those are the rules. We've got article section, article and footer. We have an aside, and we can add the aside, this basically a sidebar here. See the aside right there. Once again, like we expected, where do you want this inserted? After the start of the tag, before the end of the tag. Class, do you want to have this join a class and or have an ID associated with it? You can actually do both. Not prevented to do one or the other. See, there's an aside. So let's see what this looks like. I can either click live to view just the screen like that. I can go out to the browser, and then I can bring up a browser and view it in a browser. So I think I'll do here. Just by double clicking on it, brings it up. We have this aside, got the footer here, the header, the nav bar. Now, if you recall, this whole design here was reflected on these other pages. And so I can just grab this content because it's going to be the same to begin with. I haven't begun putting in any new content. Just grab from body to body here. See, I'm going to change this to say home page. You can do it right there. And then about page, I'll just type this as a title. Remember, the title is not displayed in the white area here. This is actually displayed up on the tab. And this contact. Oops. And then portfolio. Gotta save it. Command S. Save portfolio. Command S. Now come back here, and I can grab this section here because I want to reproduce it. In fact, what I think I'll do is just grab the nav section. I want to do this other footer. Let's go that whole area. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go to the about here. Now, I clicked on about, and this is the old content that was in here. And I can just delete out this old and paste in. Oops, forgot I didn't. I did a Control Z twice there. See, this is the area. So I pasted that in here. So this is part of the management of lots of web pages. You have to, if you make changes, you have to go in each of them like this. There's another way to do this, and that's using templates. Like we talked about a certain type of template a couple of days ago. So this one is contact, and so cut that out. And portfolio. So now here I gotta be careful because I've got content already in here, these images. And so I don't want to just do a copy and paste. So take the header and I'll paste that there. So nav section. We've got div body, div class body. So I could take this section here and then remove down in here. So I'm going to put a section tag around the figures. I've got open section, close section. You don't have to format like this, but oops. Just doing a little formatting here. Sometimes they have add-ins that will do this. I wish that they would just add it as a feature. I call it a pretty formatter. Hopefully it's in pretty print HTML extension. Use HTML formatting in Dreamweaver. Let's see if we can get it to do it for us. Format paragraphs. Format paragraph. Okay, so let's come back here and I'll click here. Format, paragraph format, paragraph. Now, all that did is add a paragraph tag. Format, paragraph format. See, this is not what I'm looking for, really. Auto format your code. This would be it. Commands, apply formatting. Command, apply source formatting. Yeah, that's it. See how it's kind of did. That's a nice feature here. Commands, apply source for. Let's see what cleanup HTML does. That actually goes through and makes sure that it cleans up if I have any missing tags, empty container tags, non-durational comments, or special markups, specific tags. Okay. It came back and says nothing to clean up. When you're making mistakes, it's usually prompt you and show you that you have an error. See the number 13 is red. It's red because it doesn't recognize this particular tag. So we can jump into, we can save that. See, we've got nav. See, it opens it here and closes it down here. we can jump into each of these here, click on that, click commands, apply source formatting. See, it does its own thing. Commands, clean up HTML, probably won't have anything to clean up, asks us what rules we want to follow, and then comes back and says nothing to clean up. So we can save that. Commands, apply source formatting, and then you can see this little asterisk right there. That means that the file changed. I'll just save that. Let's come here, claims, commands, apply source formatting, and there's that. Let me see what, if I put this like that, save it, let me try commands again, apply source formatting. Yeah, it's interesting, it didn't correct that. Okay, so now we've got, we copied and pasted the head of the nav throughout. We put section around certain content. Portfolio, let's see, we've got all the figures here. Okay, so you see we have the div class footer right there. And there's the footer. So let's move this guy. I'll select it, see if I can grab it, drag it down here, let go. And I'm going to remove this because this is a former way of doing it, div class equals footer. And now we're going to use a semantic tag, footer. Go with section. You know, we've already put a section on here, so let's just remove this section here. We have an aside. We don't have to have an aside here in our design. We can go without. Section, footer. Okay, I'm just going to click on commands, apply source formatting. Kind of cleans it up. Little asterisk right there. Do command S to save it. Or so we got to save that one here too. Command S. All right. Oh, we've run over a little bit. Let's take a 10-minute break, and I'll introduce you to Aaron, who has arrived. Go ahead and take a break. Aaron, can you test your microphone? Yeah, go ahead and see if you can talk.
All right, can you hear me?
You see a little mic icon? Oh, maybe you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Can you unmute yourself? Here, I'll unmute you. Okay, can you talk now? Let's see. I can't hear you. Can anybody else hear?
Can you hear me now?
So I can't hear you. Maybe it's because I've got these Bluetooth earphones. Let's see if it's that. Can you say something again?
All right, test.
Yep, I got you. Okay.
All right, perfect.
All right, well, everybody, while we're taking a break, I want to introduce to you Aaron. Aaron was a student of mine, and now we work together at the same place. Aaron is a user interface designer and or user experience designer. I'll let him tell you what that is and what that means. And Aaron, you were up in Washington, I think, and you've come down here
Correct.
with your family.
Yeah, I grew up in Utah, and then I was up in Washington and finished school up there, and then made my way back to Utah.
And at what point in your career, describe your job titles from the beginning to where you are now?
Yeah. So, real quick, I'll just say what a UI designer is. A user interface designer. It's kind of funny because I read an article the other day that was about the top most confusing job titles that your parents won't understand, and user interface designer was the number one job title on that list.
That's
I
interesting.
thought that was kind of funny and true. But I got my Bachelor of Science degree in graphic design, and that was what I called myself straight out of college. I called myself a graphic designer. That's how I applied for jobs. And at my first job, my boss told me that I should call myself a user interface designer because it would improve my just my ability to make money. It would increase my value, and I kind of just based on the title knew what a user interface designer was, but I didn't fully understand what people expected of you having that title. And so the next time I applied for a position, which is where I work now, I called myself a user interface designer, and I increased the amount I was able to make by about $20,000 a year, just
That's
by
amazing.
changing the title of my name.
That is just amazing.
And it's funny because I was doing all of that stuff before as a graphic designer. I was doing all of that, but just because I told people that I specifically focused on that, and they saw that, and that's the thing they wanted, I was able to get paid more for doing the exact same thing.
It's pretty interesting that the implementer, normally you would think that the person implementing the website and coding up the HTML, coding up the CSS, you would normally think that they might garner a pretty decent wage to be the implementer, but you don't do any of that, do you? You don't take what you create and implement it into coding.
I don't.
People do that.
I don't actually code anything. I do have some experience coding just in my own personal life. I taught myself HTML and CSS, and so having an understanding of that kind of helps me do what I do, but I don't actually implement any code. I just get to have fun all day.
It's a pretty important thing that you said, that knowing the code and being familiar with the code is helpful to you because it affects your design. Can you give an idea or two on how your knowledge of HTML or how your knowledge of CSS influences what you design? And also tell us what tool you use when you do your designing.
Yeah. Okay. So the tool I use mostly for web design is Illustrator. Not everybody likes that. A lot of people like to use Photoshop. I find I can just do everything faster in Illustrator than I could in Photoshop. But if I need to edit a photo for the website I'm creating, I use Photoshop. But generally, I work in Illustrator. And one of the major things that understanding HTML and CSS has helped me with is saving the developer time with my designs and understanding. So a huge thing in today's market is mobile design. If you tell somebody you're a designer but you only do desktop design, you don't actually worry about the phone, you're likely not going to get hired at all. So understanding that I have to be able to create something complex that still works on a phone actually drives most of my designs to be on the phone first. I design in that small window first, always with the mindset that I'm going to be able to expand this out to a tablet and then further out to a desktop. So I always have to have some idea of how it's going to work, both large and small. But my understanding of HTML and CSS helps me understand how that's going to work. I have to understand how floating works, at least in theory. Floating can sometimes be kind of a hairy process and not always work the way you expect it to. But if you understand that this item on the right is going to fall down below the item on the left and stack, so they stack on top of each other in mobile, having that understanding allows me to imagine how that's going to work, and then I can explain that to the developer so that when they go to develop it, they know exactly what they need to do. They have a clear vision of how they're going to develop it, of how it will work. And most of the time I'm able to address any roadblocks that the developer might have found before they actually ran into them, just because of the way I designed the site or whatever it may be.
Okay, so when you approach your design, um, I don't know if you can, I don't know if you have your laptop at home, or if you can show any of the work that you are working on. Perhaps you're not on a work computer, so and perhaps you don't have your work at home. But when you approach your design, are you influenced more by HTML understanding, or are you influenced more by your CSS understanding? Is that a good question?
Yeah, it's not a bad question, but I will say that it's pretty equal. I'm not actually on my work laptop right now. I'm on my home PC.
Okay, no problem at all.
If we wanted to pull up the website, I could show something, but that's up to you.
Sure. Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. I assume they can too.
Okay, good. All right. Also, while you're at it, perhaps you can also mention how your understanding of responsive design impacts your design. When you specify your designs to the team to code up, do you give them multiple designs based upon these different?
Yeah. So our particular team, I asked for the cutoff points, which basically means at this pixel width, there's another adjustment made. At this pixel width, there's another adjustment made. So as the screen gets smaller, the elements on the screen have to move around. So one thing I have to do to make that possible for them frequently is to cut out certain elements. So right now, if you go to, I guess it's Tienda there. I don't speak Spanish, but I know that's the shop link.
Going to shop.
Yep. Let's see. So let's go. This is actually a good example if you want to. Okay, so if you scroll down on her so you can see a little bit more. So she was part of this month's advertisement for our company. And as you can see, she looks nice in that full width screen. We have the product that's being given away over on the right. Now, as the screen gets smaller, you'll see that some of those, you see that more of her is appearing the text is moving. She just, so go back a little.
Where are the cutoffs defined?
So right there, that was a cutoff right there. It's just certain pixel widths.
Yeah, is it a media rule in the CSS or?
I don't actually know exactly how they code it up, but it is CSS that's telling them when to break.
Okay.
But one thing that was unique here is that because of the way she was cropped, the design changes quite a lot when in the final shift from this to mobile. So
Look at the pixels right up in here. You can see.
yeah, so you can see if you scroll down a little.
Which is down here.
Yeah, that way.
Okay.
Go up, or at least. Yeah, so now everything's on a pink background because I had to put her image on the top because it just looked weird on the bottom, but because her image had to be on the top, the background below her couldn't be black. So we changed it to pink. But that's one way in which I had to say, okay, at this cutoff right here, when it switches completely to mobile, this is how the design shifts. And then they take that, and in CSS they say, at this pixel width of the screen, make the background behind this text pink and tell free to be black instead of pink. The same goes for if you're developing for multiple web browsers. So you'll generally develop your website for a specific browser. Let's say it's Chrome. So you might start developing for Chrome, but then you'll open it in Firefox and you'll see that everything just went completely whack. Like some of the texts are left aligned now, whereas they were center aligned in Chrome. And then in CSS, you can say, okay, when we're in Firefox, make these adjustments to the code, and then you go in and you fix all of the things. Same with Internet Explorer, but Internet Explorer is the most difficult of all of them and has the most issues. But that's more of the developer's aspect of it. However, understanding that some things work in Internet Explorer or don't work in Internet Explorer that do work in every other web browser allows me to dodge certain bullets. Like, for example, in Internet Explorer 8 and before, it doesn't like CSS circles. It won't display them. It will only display them as a square. However, we were in enough need of a circle in something I'm designing right now that we decided as a team that it was okay to show it as a circle on every web browser, but then in Internet Explorer 8, we're just going to let it be a square. It just defaults to a square. But that was a discussion we had to have, and we had to understand that in Internet Explorer 8, my design was going to be a square instead of a circle.
Okay. I was noticing right in here some of the code. I want to start. Let's see. I want to start talking to them about how to create the styling associated with this. Excuse me one second. Excuse me. So we already know about head and body, and we've talked about the div tag. See, everybody, they're using a class. And in fact, they've got 1, 2, 3 different class names. You don't have to have just one class. This tag here belongs to that class and that class. And and that class. And so if we did made instructions to affect the style of this class, then this particular tag would be affected. If we have another style instruction to affect this particular class, then it would also be affected, because it's kind of like joining clubs, for lack of a better word. This tag joins a club. It joins the Wellbox club, and anything that affects Wellbox will affect this tag. Likewise here and here. So here's the body tag. It quote unquote joins the Shop Landing Club and the ENUS Club and the Market US Club. So it's a member of all these clubs or classes, and thereby it exposes itself to being impacted by the instructions that are given for these particular clubs or classes. I like these word club because it's kind of like you're a member of it. But you can see ID equals shop. There's the ID attribute. And there's just like one name there. The ID is for one particular one. See here we've got header tag. And there's the ID equals site head, main tag, ID, and there's a container. So they definitely are using ID a lot in identifying the tag itself. Like I said, ID is like a name or a nickname, and it's unique. You won't find any other tag in the entire HTML document that has the word ID of footer. And it says that it's a member of a class, but I don't see any value to that. So, and then we've got some scripting. This is Java scripting. So back to the question I was asking you about the process of design. One thing you said, you have to specify the cutoffs, and the cutoffs is the number of pixels and is that what you call them, cutoff?
Yeah.
And so how many cutoffs do you typically have? Do you have to design for, like 3 or 4? Or?
Just 3. I do one for a desktop, one for basically an iPad, and then one for an iPhone. And I design for the smallest version of iPhone that we, that we develop for. But occasionally something's complex enough that I'll have to throw in an extra in between so they can see how I intended that to work or how I intended the text to wrap.
You say it in between. So you only have to do one for the desktop, one for an iPad.
Or tablet.
Or tablet. And then one for mobile. So, by the way, do you have to do any design for a rotated? Because obviously in portrait mode, the desktop has one design, but individuals who have tablets, they can
rotate them.
Yeah, rotate. Do you have to worry about that in your?
No, because it defaults. It switches to just a smaller version of the desktop.
Oh, this does.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that. What about the landscape of a iPhone?
Yeah, same there. I mean, it's just going to inherit whatever you've done for the vertical phone and just make things wider and a little bigger.
Oh, okay. So it's not 2 designs. It's pretty much the same design.
Yeah, but you have to have enough of an idea of how things are going. Like as you're designing, you have to understand that it will still work when turned. But generally, if it works vertically on a phone, it's going to also work horizontally. You're just going to have less view on the screen at one given moment.
Okay. In your design, you never have to do a prototype, do you? You just use Adobe Illustrator and.
Not in my current job, but I have built prototypes in Fireworks before.
Okay.
But yeah, generally no. And if I do need to show maybe like a drop-down menu, I'll just take layers in Illustrator, and I'll create different artboards with different layers and then save it as a PDF. And as I move through the PDF, it looks like things are moving and adjusting. So occasionally, if I want to show a mock-up that way, I will.
Okay. And that was with Fireworks.
Fireworks, you can actually build a clickable wireframe in Fireworks.
Oh, that's nice.
So, and it doesn't take too much time. It definitely doesn't require any development. But I'm not actually required to know. I do have to write out explanations, though, especially right now, most of the stuff I'm doing is just for people that are sitting right next to me. So if they have a question or if something isn't completely clear, they can just ask it. But if I was sending it off to a third party to be developed, I'm going to need to, explain to them in detail how to do that.
Okay. Now, as part of your job, if there are any images, is your job to create the images, or does the implementer not only do the coding of CSS and HTML, but they also create the images that are part of your design?
Sure. What do you mean by create the images, though?
Well, just I'm curious if they just take your design and then they, in other words, do you just put placeholders in your design, kind of like?
Sure.
And they,
Yeah, I generally put placeholders. If you go back to the unique site, though, if you click on Kudos up there, this is a spot where over on the right, each of those, like the lights, the different members of the splurge set, and then the precision eyeliner down there, all of those I individually cut out and gave their own custom shadow that I designed. So that way, as the cutoffs were moving, as the site got bigger or smaller, the developer had the ability to move those around on the page. As you see there, the lights are moving because they are individual images. But all I did was say, here's the images, this is what I want it to look like. Or here's the PNGs, I guess. Here are the photo assets. I've cut them out for you so you can move them around as you need to. This is where I want them to end up. This is where they should be. And then they use the code to tell the browser where to put those elements as the screen changes.
yeah, it's kind of interesting. Those images. You say that you provide them with individual images?
Yeah, so I cut them out individually. Well, technically those three, and then those three splurge items, and then the precision eyeliner and their shadows are all one object, but they didn't have to be. That's just how we did this particular one.
Uh-huh. And so you provided those graphics to them as part of your deliverable.
Correct. And the reason I cut them out and gave them their own shadow was so that the developer could move those around anywhere on that pink background, and they would still look nice and consistent.
I see. All right. So that's helpful to know. So that sounds like you do play a role in delivering not only just a design with a mock-up with placeholders, but it sounds like you are even part of the process of delivering some of the elements that images that they'll end up using.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, so we've covered so far the idea of the different sizes? It sounds like you do 3 sizes. That there's a certain point that is it a width? I would imagine it's just the width that is.
Mhm.
So-
Yeah, the vertical plays a little bit of a role, but only in the sense that, like, if I'm designing for an iPad, I have to know how much of a banner, for example, is going to be shown before it gets cut off at the bottom of the screen. Like, if I need a customer to, if from a business standpoint, I need a customer to click shop now or buy now button, but that doesn't show up above what is called the fold, which is the spot on the screen that you can't see. Anything below the fold you can't see, and anything above the fold is visible on the screen. So I need that button to show up above the fold to increase the amount of clicks that it gets, and therefore the amount of sales we get. So from that standpoint, it's important to pay attention to what a person sees vertically as well as horizontally.
I see. Okay, so we've talked about the different sizes of that you have to generate, the width of the pixel at which you tell me the word. What's the word of the width? It's the
The breaking point.
breaking point. Okay. So the breaking point is essentially when you design shifts from one to the next.
Yep.
So you have a width, and I think it's specified in pixels, and one's for the desktop, one's for a tablet, probably in portrait or landscape.
All in portrait. I design all in portrait.
Okay, so you got that, and portrait, vertical, and then let's see, then the mobile. So you've got 3 different designs that you put together.
Mm-hmm.
You know exactly the width of pixel that is the breaking point for each. You just need 2 of those. One that shifts from desktop to tablet, and the other one that shifts from tablet to mobile. So there's
Correct.
two width. Can you tell me? Do you know what the width those breaking points are? I'm curious to know what the 2 numbers are that you.
So the desktop is going to be about 1200. It might be like 1198 or something like that.
Now, am I hearing you say that at 1198 that shifts to tablet? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
No, that is the desktop version.
Oh,
Off the top of my head, I don't know at what point it switches to tablet, but from the tablet to mobile, it switches at 375 pixels.
okay, 375, and I think that is the exact width of the iPhone, the old iPhone. Is that right?
The old iPhone, like the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 4S, those are 325 pixels, and that is the smallest phone we developed for. It's also the smallest smartphone screen. And then, like the iPhone, gosh, what are we on? The iPhone 6, not the 6 Plus, but the 6 is 375 pixels. But all it does from the 375 to the 325 is it just scrunches everything down to be even smaller.
All right. So, let's see. MacBook Pro is 1920 by 1200. That's the outer one. Here, there's the iPhone 4, 640 by 960. And you're most interested in just the width, not the height so much, because it's scrollable.
Yep.
And so
The only time I'm concerned about the height is if I need them to see a button that's above the fold.
Now, what does that mean again when you say above the fold?
So everything visible on the screen at any given time is above the fold. Anything that's below what you can see on the screen is below the fold. So so the fold is where the monitor or the screen cuts off at the bottom.
Sure, got it.
But if they're going to come to a page and I need them to click a button, I am going to show them that button above the fold every single time. I'm not going to hide it below the fold. I'm never going to make them scroll to click that button. They always have to be able to see it above the fold.
Gotcha. Always in the display area.
So that's the only time I'm almost ever concerned vertically. I don't want to make a banner ad super tall vertically, so I try to make things as short as possible so that they can see as much of it on the screen at one time. But in terms of breaking points, horizontal is all that matters.
Okay. So I see the iPhone here. I don't see the tablet. Well, this is a tab. I think maybe that's short for tablet.
Mm-hmm.
So there would be 2 breaking points that would occur going from this large desktop dimension to the tablet, and then from the tablet to that mobile device.
And it's important to take note here. Right now we have Retina display monitors which show twice the amount of pixels in the same space, so it gives the screen that really precise look. There's a lot of precision there. The lines are really crisp and clear. So if you look at the iPhone 4, its dimensions are 640 by 960. But when I'm designing for an iPhone 4, I put the pixel width to 320 because it's cut in half. The only time the 640 pixels is important is when you're doing images. So if you want an image to appear high definition on a Retina screen, you have to make it twice the size it would normally be.
I got you. And let me echo back what I think you've just said. Because the Retina screens, it's a different technology. The Retina screens make it so that rather than just single pixel, it actually doubles the resolution automatically of what it's capable of displaying. And because it's going to double on you the resolution of what it's going to display, you have to design for that doubled resolution. And so, am I right?
Yeah. Unless, if you're working with photos, like if you're using text or something, it's going to automatically show, it's going to automatically be twice the size, but to you it's going to look its normal size. But it'll automatically display in extreme high definition on a mobile.
I see.
Because it's going to be vector instead of raster.
So, did you say Retina display?
Mm-hmm.
Our Retina displays vector? Vector? Is that what you just said, or what?
Well, so just real quick, what a vector image is an image, like if you've ever zoomed in on a photograph, you see that it gets all pixelated over time.
Right.
Pretty soon you're just looking at boxes. But with a vector, whatever you're looking at, all the lines change proportionately based on mathematical values. So no matter how far you zoom in, it's going to be really crisp and really clear. So it makes Illustrator is really good with vectors, and you always want to create, for example, a logo in vector.
Sure.
Because the more you zoom in on that logo, that just allows you to blow the logo up as big as you want it, and it will always maintain its clarity.
Because technically, it's like formula that generates the information rather than pixels. Pixels, you have to define every, or in other words, raster. You have to define every single color of each pixel, and so it's kind of like spread out. Whereas this thing is like it's like a formula, and that's what Adobe Illustrator will keep the format in the vector format so that it scales large and small. Whereas the Adobe Photoshop is a raster based
Mm-hmm.
thing, and that's why you like vector, because you can scale it. Having a formula for defining your your color information or whatever graphical information you have is much superior to just using the raster. And so
Exactly.
you're saying the retinal display, is it more associated with the vector?
So you can't really think of it that way.
Oh, okay.
It will show everything more crisp and more clear, but it's got twice the amount of pixels in the same space. So 99.9% of the time, you'll never see a vector photograph. And if you do, it's going to look kind of wonky,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a gigantic file. So 99.9% of the time, you're going to have a raster-based photograph, and so you have to be concerned about the pixels within it. Now, what vector does is it'll still show you a space that's, let's say, 640 by 300 pixels. But in that 640 pixel space, there are actually going to be, 1,280 pixels. So in other words, if you put a 650 or 640 pixel image in a 640 pixel space, it's going to look normal. But to make an image retina display capable and nice and crisp and clear as it can be, to really utilize the retina display technology, you have to take an image that's 640 pixels, you have to turn it into 1280, and then all of those 1280 pixels get shrunk down to little itty bitty pixels in a 640 pixel space. And because there are twice the amount of pixels and they're so much smaller, you get a much clearer, crisper picture on that screen.
Okay. All right, let's back up out of this. We've got that figured out. The responsive design, we are, I think, clear on that, and how your job is to design for 3 different sizes, and that you need to know what the breaking point is to go between, because you need to know this dimension, you need to know that dimension, and you need to know that dimension.
Mm-hmm. Desktop, tablet, and mobile.
I think these are just ranges up in here.
Yeah. There are a whole bunch of different sizes in between all those. There are like 50 plus.
Yeah, because
sizes.
we've got all these different devices.
Yep.
Nice display sizes. And so we've got so many devices, each of them have different sizes, and so you have to choose. Look at this. Over 6 months, we have 3,997 different devices, each of which have these different sizes. And you can't design specifically for each of these dimensions. You choose 3. One
and
for mobile.
You have an idea of how it will work.
Yeah. And
it gets really ridiculous.
Yeah, you can't. You have to. So there's a little bit of do the images. So you've got 3 different. 3 different here. 3 different. Now I'm going to watch this image here, and when this image scales down, I'm seeing that the image appears to be contracting in size.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because, is that like attributes that are changing, like styling attributes are changing on the image? It's really just one image, but the image is getting scaled.
Yeah, and in this case, I didn't actually cut her out of the background, so her and the black background are all one piece.
So how do you minimize pixelation? Now, is this graphic is probably just like a JPEG.
So when I designed this particular banner, I designed the whole banner at twice the size it was going to be, just so that when the developer got a hold of it, they already had that photograph at double the pixels so that it would show up clearly and crisply on a Retina display.
I see. So you've already accommodated that. And so already you've got twice as much information. You've doubled the pixels and that's going to help to go high definition. But you're never going to encounter pixelation, though. I mean, I don't see any distortion here.
Yep. No matter how, I mean, until you, like, if you hit Command plus, or I don't know, are you on a PC?
No, Matt.
Yeah, so Command plus, if you start zooming in on the website specifically, and actually as she starts to get larger, then you'll start to see the pixelation. Unless she
Vanishes.
Hey, yeah, that menu's a nuisance. So it looks like it looks like when this was developed, they didn't actually allow her to get zoomed in on too far. She maintains, like, they gave her this is as small as she can get no matter what.
Right there. And then big Y, same thing, I think, yeah.
Yep.
She's jumping around there. Okay. All right, so that's...
But if a person's viewing this not on a Retina display, they're still not going to see the images crisp and clear as they could on a Retina display. To them, it'll just have half the amount of pixels.
Right.
But that gets really complex, and it's difficult to explain. It took me a long time to understand it in practice.
Mm-hmm. So we were looking just a moment ago at the HTML of this particular web page, and we know pretty much what's going on. I mean, HTML, head, body, div, header, main, section, and so on. Div tags, more section, end of an article. Is your knowledge of the HTML, do you have in mind any of this at all? I'm just curious.
Sure.
When you design. Okay.
Definitely. I mean, to me, in my mind, I've always just considered divs to be boxes.
Yeah.
Boxes with other boxes inside of them. And then sometimes the boxes inside of the boxes have to sit side by side. And sometimes they have to stack on top of each other. And so, yeah, when I'm creating it, I'm imagining, okay, well, this works and this works and this works because this box can be here and this box can be here. And then probably the way my understanding of divs helps me the most is the way that they float next to each other when you're telling them to float in CSS, because I have to say, okay, I'm going to need this to float here, this to float here, and this to float here, and then the developer will take it and they'll make it float. They'll just automatically know that needs to happen, but I have to understand that it's possible.
Right. And when you use the word float, I mean, what's literally going on if a box is floating? And there's overlapping? Is there any place on the website where we've got floating boxes or overlapping?
Yeah,
boxes?
go down to so right there.
Oops.
As far as I know, most of the time you have columns. They're floating next to each other.
Okay. Okay.
Or you've, given one div a certain width, and then you've given its parent div a max height, and then it just kind of forces them to move next to each other automatically.
All right, everybody, just so you understand the concept of a parent div. So here we've got div tag open and close, but here we've got div tag that's open, and down here you come along and there's another div tab that opens. And so this is a nested div tag. The reason why you call it nested is because it's dropped into a div tag that's already open and going. And so it comes on down here, we've got all these spans, and then there it closes off the div tag, and then it opens up another one, closes it off. And so this nested means that you start up another open div tag before you close the previous one. And that's how you can do nested. That's a parent. So
It's like Russian dolls.
yeah. Everybody understands the concept of Russian dolls. Let me just show that really quickly.
You can. What's interesting is that you can have a div be a parent and a nested div at the same time.
A parent, and it can be a parent
Because it's inside another div, but there's also a div inside of it.
Yeah. So, so when you use the word floating, tell us more what that means in the design. What's the value of a floating div box or div tag?
Well, as a designer, there's not a huge amount of value for me, but as a developer, to be able to create floating is really important, especially for mobile design, because it basically just means that you have this element on the left, and by default, I believe divs stack on top of each other. So you have to say, I want this div to float left, and then it forces one div to the right, one to the left. And then that's really nice because as you're scaling it for mobile or for a tablet, you can just tell it to stop floating at that breaking point, and then they stack on top of each other instead. So it's really good for mobile design, for anything other than a desktop. But it's also really important. My understanding of floats isn't like I know the concept, but I'm terrible at coding them. So I couldn't explain how to do it. I've messed them up lots of times, but they are important.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's see. Check the time. Getting close. What I wanted to show the class is, let's jump to this website that I've shown them before, CSS Zen Garden. And I kind of wanted your perspective on this. This website, have you ever heard of this website before?
Yeah, I think I've been here a couple of times.
Okay. So here we've got the separation of design and the presentation or the presentation versus the content. So the HTML file is all the same from one design to the next, but the CSS file and the associated images are all different. So do you, in doing your design, do you approach it in a similar fashion where you are thinking separate? The content is in one area, you kind of, in your mind, you design for just what's going to end up in CSS rather than the content. In other words, I'm trying to ask you, how does the separation of content with the presentation influence you as you design, or does it influence you? This separation of content from design.
For me, it doesn't influence me a ton. Understanding how it's going to influence the developer, again, helps me to design it. But mostly for me, I sit down and I say, okay, this is what I want to do. How hard is this for the developer? And sometimes I just don't know. I have to have them come over and I have to say, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I think the best option is here. Is it worth the amount of development time it would take to put into it? But for me, I'm mostly just trying to make things look visually sound on the page
Yeah.
and have an understanding of how, just of its capacity to be developed by a developer.
Yeah. Yeah, we always, it's been so interesting to see how the evolution of HTML5 and CSS3, this HTML5 or HTML it kind of grew and grew and grew, and as styling people, style designers came along, they kind of said, hey, you're kind of you've kind of encroached into the styling area. We kind of want to extract the two of you, or extract the design from this content. And so that's how CSS has evolved. It's evolved more and more and more because it's become the way for the designers to express themselves without having to be bound by HTML. So let me show everybody how CSS works. Here we have the typical HTML that you understand, but we're introducing a new tag called style here, and everything that goes between the open style tag and the closed style tag, this is considered styling. And then you can see it's in the head, not the header, but the head section of the code. So that means that this will not be displayed in this area here. Remember, it has to be in between the body tag and the close by tag in order for it to show up here. Remember that? This head is really where you can put information that that just will affect things, but not be the words, the contents. The content shows up in the body tag. So just so you understand how this works, the syntax for styling is different than HTML. So basically what's going on, we have this section here from there to there to define our styling. So this is not HTML coding. This is the syntax of CSS. And let me show you how it works. You recognize the tag, and that's called a selector. And what this means is, hey, over in the HTML code, right down here, where you're using the body tag, right down there, in that whole section from here to here, open, close, open body tag to close body tag, in that section, I want you to make a background color of this value. And that's what this light blue is here. You know, we could change it to something else. Click over here and see if it changes. See result. It didn't change so much. By the way, do you specify colors in your design? And do you do it with RGB?
I do it with hex codes. Generally, if it's for the web, I'll do RGB. If I'm designing for print, I'll do CMYK.
Right. Okay. So you're specifying the 6-digit hex code when you need a number. You probably know the 6-digit hex code for the unique purple by heart. I don't know if that's it, but
I think you just threw me under the bus on that.
sorry, I'm not going to ask you. This purple here, you know, I don't even know what. I don't know.
Well, and that's two different purples right there. I don't know. I assigned it, and now I just click an icon that gives me the purple every time.
Yeah. All right. So,
Hey, Chip, I got to run.
hey, thanks so much.
Not a problem.
I'll see you tomorrow.
It was fun. All right, you guys have a good night.
See you in work tomorrow. All right, and then here, H1 tag. So wherever the H1 tag is, see it right down here. Remember, this is the area where it's targeting. It's focusing on this area down here, but we've separated the two. We've got the styling up in here, and then this is the content area down in here. But they have these little pointers, or call them selectors. So this one affects this tag from open to close. This one affects this tag from open to close, right there. See, open to close. This one here affects this tag from open to close. So they've separated all the styling instructions. These are called name value pairs. There's the name of the property. This is its value. Syntax is the name of the property followed by a colon, and then the value followed by a semicolon. So the name of the property, colon, name of the value, or the value. Name of the property, colon, value. Property, colon, value. Property, colon, value. So, so that's how you separate styling from the content. And here on this website here, you will, if you download the HTML file, it's basically the HTML file is pretty much just this stuff here, but the CSS file that you download here, that is really this stuff here. So they actually separate into two things. They've got the HTML file separate from the CSS file. So if we open up the HTML, it's like there's no styling at all. And if we do a right click and a view page source, you can see this is just HTML here. We've got some comments in there, but it's all HTML. But instead of having the script up in this area, what they did is they have put the script in a separate file. And this is it right there. It's a reference to that separate file. And so instead of having it right embedded right at the top of within the head tag, you actually hear they're saying, go out and grab that file, link to it. It's a style sheet, and the media will be a screen. You know, we can have style sheets for printers, and this is for the screen. And then here's the location of that style sheet. So click on that, and then this is 214. So let's do this. I'll grab the 214 right here. It's downloaded. It's right here. So this is 221. So do 221.css, hit enter, and there it is. So this is the CSS. So instead of having it at the top of the HTML file, it's in its own file, and all these instructions are CSS instructions. And you can see again, there's the syntax. This one says, in between the HTML tag and the body tag, do all these things. This thing says, for the anchor tags, make this all occur. You're influencing the style of that. And this one is for the anchor tag, when you're in the state of hovering over, do these things. This is actually a reference to an ID. So this is saying, forget, I'm not going to point out a particular tag by its name. I'm going to go for the ID itself. So that's that little dot right there means all these things will affect that one HTML tag with that particular ID. Same here, ID of intro. That's what you want to do. This here is a little bit different because this is like the ID of intro, but followed by a header. So this is, you have to not only be inside the thing called intro, but you also have to be within the header, which is defined inside that intro. And that means, that's how it's a select, this is a selector here, and this is a way to target right into HTML code. Here's a media rule. This is how you do, remember how we were talking about doing the responsive design, and he talked about the width and there's a cutoff. Here are the widths. I actually don't even know what EM stands for. I should know that. Pixel EM. EM actually stands for EM values are probably the most difficult values to wrap. 1 EM is equal to the current font size of the element in question. So it's probably just like one character. Current font size of the element in question, if you have it. So in other words, in your design here, 1 EM might be something like that wide. It's an element. It's the width of, I think, one character. So here, this media rule that we were just looking at a second ago, where did it go? Get rid of these because they're affecting me. All right, so right here, here's the media rule. This is the way that you do responsive design. That's the thing you use. So if you do look at W3 schools media rule, and this is the new way. This is how you do responsive design. You have these definitions. It says if the screen, you need to have using a screen that's basically saying, okay, we want you to be doing this output to a screen, not to like a printer driver. And the minimum width is 480 pixels. Then the minimum width is 480 pixels, then you do this. So that's, so let's see if we're gonna resize this thing. Oh, see that? It resized and it changed the colors right there, right there, bam. So at 480 pixels, this thing says change it. Minimum width is 480 pixels, so at the moment that we're smaller than 480 pixels, it's going to change to blue because, see this light blue? This says here, okay, normally do light blue. This thing says here, but if you hit 480, switch to light green. That's what, this is how responsive design works right there. So if you are up here in, let's see, I wanted to go here, you have max width 70 EM, that, again, the unit is like characters. Then do this at the max width 70 EM. But if you're going up to 53 EM, do this. All right, so, and then we go on. It's, you can see it's a large document. This is all CSS. This is the ID intro, whatever tag has the ID intro. Inside that tag, you'll find a header defined, but within that header, you have an H1 defined. So this is called like a nested selector. And so this is targeting just the H1 tag, which is found within a header tag, which is found within a tag called .intro. And same thing down here. So you can see you have media associated with that too. Okay. So this is CSS. This is where designers really try to hang out. And they also create the images. See this image? Background, URL, that's an image right there. Okay, so let's see where else. Wherever you see the JPEG, it's definitely an image. See there? That right there. See that? That's an image too. Here's an image. There's an image. Okay? So the CSS is going to give styling information. It'll tell you exactly when to do it, depending on the side. It'll tell you exactly where to apply the styling, what styling attributes to apply, and it also will take into consideration how to include images. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute, HTML has an image tag, an IMG tag. That's right. So here's a little bit of overlap. The HTML that you've learned this past week, you were using IMG tag. So IMG tag right here. So here we have the IMG tag, and you're saying, well, wait a second. Why is it that I have the ability to include an image within HTML, but also I have the ability to include an image from within the CSS. Well, this is actually preferable this way because you really separate content from content, not only the text, but also any design that would show up at the front end, any kind of image. So if you can use your CSS to define images that are in the design, then that's what you prefer to do. So the CSS, all these designs will reference images instead of using an HTML tag, because in the CSS Zen Garden, you will not find any image tags. You won't see, if we do a right click and view page source, I don't think you'll find any IMG tags. Now, I just searched for IMG, they're not in here. So this design is being done without using any IMG tags. All of these images are actually being brought in by this references to the background that we saw a second ago. Let's see, where was it? I think I didn't close it. It was a CSS file. Anyways, it's about time for us to call it a night. So if you have any questions, feel free to stay. If not, thank you very much for attending. Oh, I'm going to set the assessments to be able to take those twice. So I'll do that right when we're done. And hopefully this has been enjoyable to you and helpful, interesting in discussion of website design. Oh, the break is going to begin at the end of this Saturday night. The break begins. It goes for 2 weeks. Oh, I got to post that. I'll post that as an announcement tonight. I got a little, I have a little flyer. I'll do that too. We'll have 2 weeks, 2 weeks. All right. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming. Oh, okay. Sounds good, Scotty. Good night. Okay. Let me turn off the recorder. Let's see here.